I've been very meh on the war in Ukraine as of late. Haven't really made a video about it in a while and haven't really wanted to talk about it in a while because I just see no real progress being made on either side. I don't see Trump turning a new leaf and ultimately wanting to hurt Putin in some way, shape, or form. But that all changed on Sunday. And Operation Spiderweb was carried out where Ukraine either smuggled in, purchased, whatever. The exact specifics aren't exactly known. I know people are saying that they were these drones were smuggled in, but these were little quadcopter drones that are literally like the smaller than a loaf of bread, and they were rigged with explosives, put in the top of trucks with panels that were retractable or they fell off somehow. They were rigged containers on container trucks being pulled by actual Russians that had no idea that this cargo was in the top of the containers of the trucks that they were hauling, and they got them to be delivered near 4 different military bases. These quadcopters dispatched and destroyed while they targeted what was being reported to be 41 different planes, actual Air Force planes, not just like commercial fly to the side of the country type planes. Anyway, and I don't think people really grasp how much damage was done from this beyond just these planes being destroyed. Satellite photos have showed and confirmed about 21 planes have actually been hit. The one remaining AWAC in Russia's at Russia's disposal was disposed of. If you don't know what AWAC is, it's basically a flying command fortress in the sky. It's a plane with very advanced radar and sophisticated equipment. It helps coordinate attack efforts on the ground and through the sky, etc. 0 of them left. 2 have already been shot down by Patriot systems from Ukraine, and this last one got hit by a drone. And what people need to realize is this attack was so much more than just these planes damage, as I mentioned a little bit ago. There has got to be such utter chaos, finger pointing, blaming, just what do we do type talk within the Kremlin right now. Heads are going to roll. Retribution is going to be sought, of course, by the Russians on Ukraine. But there has to be such a feeling of vulnerability right now in Russia. A country like China has to be sitting there saying, like, geez, this was able to be pulled off on the quote-unquote second greatest military might in the world. Like, I seriously believe that one of these bases that were targeted were right across the border from China, to show that, we can attack them right on your border, China. Imagine what you could do with operatives, because boy, there's a lot of people that look, very Asian in the motherland. And man, if China ever got froggy and wanted to do something like Operation Spiderweb times 10, they could decimate the entire Russian Air Force in the same hour it took for Ukraine to remove a third of Russia's strategic strike long-range air capability planes from existence. A third of them are gone. And some of these planes were the long-range type planes that were designed to, as part of what they call the nuclear triad in Russia, that they need these planes to be the large, like stratosphere type flying planes that were designed to come over and fly to a country like a continent like North America and decimate it if it had to bring nuclear arms over here and not rely on just ballistic missiles. Some of these planes were the ones targeted. So Russia, as their nuclear triad threat, is significantly weakened. Because when push comes to shove, if it goes down to a nuclear war, you can't just rely on ballistic missiles. You got to count on planes being able to go over, fly above the actual countries that you're attacking, drop bombs. They took a big hit. They lost a third of the aircraft that were able to do that. And it was drones. Little anyone, you or I, could buy one of these quadcopter drones that Ukraine used in this Operation Spiderweb on Sunday. Like, that's the level of sophistication. A little gunpowder and metal casing and know how to make a bomb, and you could do what just happened to Russia. William Spaniel, I think, said it the best in that this wasn't exactly hard to do. It was just something clever to do. And I heard another person say, like, Sun Tzu in his Art of War, one of the things that you want to do in battle is something the enemy doesn't expect. And that will ultimately cause havoc and win you the war. Because like I said, there's got to be so many people in the FSB, so many generals that were in charge of these air bases that got attacked, saying, how did this happen? How did little commercial-grade drones come in here and decimate our airframes? How? There's got to be such utter chaos. And this is like one of the things where I'm just like so meh about this now. And, this war, just like, I just felt like it was going to go nowhere. And it hasn't really been going anywhere in now months on end. But man, does this change things. And as far as like what Trump and Putin have been saying in the now over 2.5 days since this happened, in the words of Anisa's husband, their silence means something. I've heard next to nothing from Trump about this and zero from Putin or any of the high command in Russia or the FSB or anyone. Like they've got to be so dumbfounded that this took place on their territory. This wasn't anything launched from Ukraine. I mean, obviously the know-how and resources and whatnot, you could say, got smuggled in from Ukraine, but everything was dispatched from the actual motherland. This is nuts. And it's kind of like just a terrible time that Russia decided to pick this war with drone technology being where it is right now, because all these drones were controlled remotely. All the actors that put these drones together, rigged them with armaments, were taken out of Russia before these drones were ever took flight on Sunday. They used Russian cellular telephone lines to control them remotely, whether it was from like Kazakhstan, from a bordering country, all the way back Ukraine, whatever. Doesn't matter. Like, again, like what William Spaniel said, how this being more of a clever thing to do and not necessarily a sophisticated thing to do, just really just sounds true, because it's something that was so simple to do. And William Speed also tied this into like 9/11. Like 9/11 and hijacking a plane isn't exactly a sophisticated thing to do. It's a clever thing to do. And it was a very clever thing to obviously fly them into a large building in New York City, 2 large buildings, and the Pentagon, and wherever that other one was going to go that crashed in Pennsylvania, wherever that was supposed to go, the White House supposedly. But anyway, it just goes to show you, man, you can have all the might in the world as a superpower in Russia, but they took such a devastating blow that people are equating this to the attack on Pearl Harbor, which was considered one of the biggest military sneak attacks of all time. But man, like a little entity like Ukraine, with something as feeble as commercial grade drones that you or I could purchase right now, use them to decimate a third of the second biggest military in the world's long strike airframe capability. That is, it's both hysterical and sad that the state of Russia is as everyone has been saying, just a paper tiger. They're weak. They couldn't defend against this. They had no idea it was coming. The FSB is a joke, that this has been planned for over a year and a half. They never caught wind of this. Like, the propaganda can't even cover this up now. They're humiliated. They have to take this so hard on the chin. They just have to go, I'm knocked out. I have to lay down. I have to stay on the campus. I can't even get up for propaganda on this time. And even on channel 1 in Russia right now, they're just saying they want people held accountable. How could this happen? Like, they're not even denying it, like saying like, oh, most of the drones were shot down. There's just some random debris that fell on the runways. There's nothing serious that happened. Like, no, there's like so undeniable evidence, and it was such a huge hit to their military might that you can't even spin it. You can't even spin it. You can't pull a North Korea and cover it in a big blue tarp like Kim Jong-un just did with that destroyer that sunk on its maiden voyage and turned into a submarine. Anyway, I can't believe that this actually happened. It was such a clever move of ingenuity, such a great tactical message to send. And again, this was so much more beyond those airplanes that got destroyed. There has got to be, like I said, so much chaos and disruption. This is the type of things that ultimately makes something crumble, makes a regime crumble from within. Because put yourself in the shoes of actual military might right now, the actual military generals in charge. They got to be saying like, man, we're talking about getting a ceasefire, and we've got a little bit of Luhansk and Donetsk and Zaporizhia, a couple of these sections, a couple of these 4 oblasts in Ukraine, and we're losing all these men, all these tanks, and now our Air Force just got cut by a third of their strategic strike capability. Why are we continuing this war? Can we get a better excuse, Putin, besides denazification or creating a buffer zone between us and NATO? Like, the military generals have to genuinely, whether they're not overtly saying that, they have to be saying and thinking that more than ever now. Because something like this can happen all the time now. The fact that this has happened, there's got to be such a cluster F of logistical nightmare right now, of trucks being searched, buildings being searched. Where is the next dispatch of these going to come? It could come from anywhere. They could be in random boxes in a field in a Siberian forest right now that will never be found. Russia is so big, there's no way they can strip search the whole country. And they got to be so afraid of that. And that is awesome. And Russia deserves it for starting this war. And man, I'll tell you one thing. And Professor Gertis, a guy who makes YouTube videos, and he was talking about this with another guy this morning on a video he uploaded, saying like, man, if you watch that press conference between Trump and Zelensky, where JD Vance was like, did you even say thank you? And like that whole thing now, you watch that back in hindsight now, knowing that Zelensky already had Operation Spiderweb in his back pocket, and he just had to give the orders to go on it. Because like he said, this was in plan over a year and a half ago. That meeting with Zelensky was just a couple months ago. It was in February. So Zelensky has this in his back pocket, and Trump is saying, you don't have any cards to play. You don't have any cards. They just decimated a third of the long-range striking capabilities for the Russian military. America is a safer country right now because there are less bombers that can bring nuclear weapons over to the United States right now because of what Ukraine did on Sunday. America and the world itself is safer from a nuclear attack from the United, I almost said the USSR, from Russia because of what Ukraine did on Sunday. Did you say thank you, JD Vance? Did you say thank you to Zelensky for helping make America safe? You dickhead. Anyway, my daughter didn't hear that. She's way out there and she's blowing a whistle. Anyway, oh boy. And it's great because I hated that press conference so much. It gave me anxiety seeing JD Vance and Trump just utterly just speak down to Zelensky the way they did it in the Oval Office. But man, now seeing that he had to have just such a smug smile in his mind and be like, boy, if you mother effers knew what was gonna come. Oh, just sit back and enjoy the show. And again, like Anisa's husband said, their silence means something. You haven't heard a word from JD Vance and Trump about this because they had to sit back and they had to go, wow, that was pretty impressive. They'll never say that publicly because they can't speak out against Russia. Because again, you got eh, arguably people that are paid operatives in Trump's cabinet right now. You're not going to hear Tucker Carlson speak out against this right now and say, oh my God, all you're going to hear them say is like, oh, all Ukraine did was get a step closer to World War III. The capabilities of Russia enacting World War III just got severely smacked down. So let's just stop with that propaganda nonsense. So anyways, I feel fearful for what is going to be done retribution wise, because obviously Russia's going to do what they've only been able to do, which is drop bombs on schools and hospitals, communication hubs, the infrastructure of electricity and public service, water, etc. Like that's all they're going to be able to do from this. So I feel bad. I feel bad for Kyiv right now because they're obviously going to take the brunt of this. But now, I mean, everyone's probably sleeping in shelters at night knowing that this retribution attack is going to come from Russia. But and another thing about this too that I think people don't understand as well is Russia can't reproduce these planes right now. They can't build more AWACS if they wanted to. I mean, I know they have more than just the 3 that they were using. There was others that were either just like stripped down for parts, and there's others that are being repaired, but they don't have the technology and the tariffs against them, the sanctions against them are keeping them from getting valuable microprocessors and stuff along those lines from the companies that manufacture the bulk of the parts for these planes. They can't make them on their own. Anyway, boy, what a I don't know. I just feel that this is something. And again, Russia is ready to flip. Russia is ready. It's been ready to flip on Putin, and we saw that when Prigozhin made his lightning march to Moscow, and Putin worked his magic and got it halted before they got there. No one is going to want to fight against anyone that is trying to take over power in Russia. You saw that with Prigozhin. When he took over Rostov-on-Don and took the city centers, everyone was clapping and cheering because you know what? They felt he was going to go to Moscow and take things over. And the FSB and the army, like, they don't want to fire upon them. The few helicopters that they sent after them got shot down by Prigozhin's guys. Like, you don't want to be a part of that. Because if Prigozhin takes his power, he's going to ground up all those FSB agents and everyone in the army that stood against him and cut off with their heads. Just like the Queen of Hearts, off with their heads. Boy, whoever thought I would reference Alice in Wonderland in a video. Anyway, so, Russia. Good luck spitting this. I want to see what the Russian bots always come to my videos. One of them came to a video randomly the other day saying like, get ready because Ukraine's not going to be a thing for much longer. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah, I heard that 4 years ago. I've heard it multiple times over the last 4 years. So, okay. Anyway, Russia, you're getting nothing but what you deserve. And again, I myself, as a Russian American, not to reiterate that story, I feel shameful for what my heritage is doing in the world right now. So I just feel it is just necessary for me to speak out upon this. And when Ukraine does something that is just completely in the win column, you bet your ass I'm going to turn on this camera and talk about it. That is all.